Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's session, Kickstart Team Selling in Slack. My name is Mallory Brown, and I'm a Senior Content Marketing Manager at Slack. I've been with the company for about 2 years, and I'm joined today by two of our fantastic customers from Splunk, Quentin Packard and Kevin Pura. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Quentin Packard. I'm Area Vice President here at Splunk. I've been here for about 3 years and thrilled to be joining you today here to talk a little bit about how you've been an incredible business partner of ours and how we're using you every single day in our fabric of what we do day in and day out.
And hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Pura, Area Vice President of Global Sales Engineering for Splunk. And I lead a team of approximately 50 globally based sales engineers. And again, really excited to be able to spend the next few minutes with you talking about how we use Slack over here at Splunk.
Really, thank you both for being here. And to all of you in the audience, hopefully you've had time to join some of the other conversations that happened earlier today about how Slack can help you maximize your sales team's effectiveness and also help reps drive deeper customer relationships. But this session is about something that's near and dear to our hearts and essential to success in sales today, and that is team selling. As leaders of sales teams, I don't need to tell all of you that it takes a village to close a deal today. Selling requires tight coordination across various teams, tools, and processes. So this session will show you how Slack acts as a central place where sales reps can team up with different departments to operate with greater speed, to execute with more focus and cohesion, and ultimately unlock greater value for your business. Really excited to hear from Splunk, our wonderful customer, about how they use Slack to bring together key stakeholders, data and knowledge throughout the deal lifecycle. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get going. I want to kick off by discussing why team selling matters in the context of today's business climate. It's really no secret that today sales teams are facing tons of challenges that are simply beyond their control. Across the board, sales is getting harder. And we know, according to research, that the buying cycle continues to involve more people, which introduces added complexity. The sales cycle is also getting longer, and sales professionals are anticipating decreases in pipeline and in hitting quota. Buyers also have more choices and are demanding more in exchange for their business and loyalty. In fact, 54% say it's harder than ever for companies to earn their trust. That brings us to why team selling matters today for high-performing sales teams. So why are teams taking this sort of approach? We know that according to McKinsey, the three things that buyers value most are speed, transparency, and expertise. It sounds simple, but you know that delivering on this is really difficult because with more people involved in purchase decisions, all of whom have varying expectations and points of view, it's harder than ever for reps to anticipate their prospects and customers' needs and be equipped with the right answers all the time. Team selling helps reps leverage the collective knowledge and expertise of a broader cross-functional group so that reps can deliver more value at each stage of the buying process. And we know that this approach works. It increases win rates, it accelerates the deal lifecycle. Research by revenue intelligence platform gong.io actually concludes that team selling can help increase your chances of closing a deal by 258% compared to selling solo. So hopefully by now you are convinced of some of the benefits of team selling. So I want to now segue to our customer spotlight with Splunk and hear about how that team uses Slack. Kevin and Quentin, before we dive in, it would be great if you could tell our audience a bit about Splunk and the teams that you both oversee.
Yeah, absolutely. So Splunk, we're a global company. We have 35 offices around the world, 20,000 customers we're extremely proud and passionate about, and have over 6,000 employees now. My team, I get the privilege to work for brilliant and bright people in our business responsible for our observability platform. So I have roughly 100 people around the world in various customer-facing sales roles. And I also get a great partner in Kevin Pura to work alongside as he leads our SE community.
How about you, Kevin?
And as Quentin said, I'm lucky enough to be part of the best sales engineering team, not only at Splunk, but in the industry itself, where we focus on observability solutions. So helping customers understand what's going on within their cloud environments and their infrastructure, as well as their applications. So we have 50 SEs located on a global basis that are being extremely successful as a result of actually using the Slack product.
High praise. Really appreciate that. Let's actually hop over to our first question for you both that I think our audience is going to find interesting. Just to set the stage, tell us a little bit about what team selling looks like at Splunk. And what I mean by that is, how are people from different departments coming together to close deals?
Yeah, so I think first, everything you just described makes team selling very, very important, but also a little more challenging in the way we're all operating today. But it really comes down to, how do we cross-functionally collaborate? How do we share ideas? How do we share real-time feedback when things aren't going good, so that we can get help when it matters most, right? And for us, Slack is a critical part of that. It's in the DNA of how we solve problems, how we ideate, how we drive follow-ups in small communities and large global ones alike, through obviously the way we use the channels. And I think for us, the most important thing is, it's not enough, especially nowadays, just to communicate or send someone an email or a note about something. You need pervasive communication tools that you can go back to, reference, right, as things kind of evolve, as some ideas go bad, and that you can always kind of look back upon and say, hey, well, didn't we talk about X at Y date? And so for us, team selling is not just about the way sales and SEs work together. It's the way we work throughout, our product management team, our marketing team, engineering, and obviously everything through customer service and customer success. So yeah, it's I think team selling is, especially now in these virtual worlds, critical, and Slack is a massive, ability for us to do that successfully.
Well, and it's interesting, Quentin, the other thing that we talk a lot about is, it's not just about driving the internal folks. As you talked about, the larger team between sales and SEs and product and executives, and bring them into the fold. But one of the things that we've done extremely successfully is actually integrated our customers using Slack Connect into the overall Slack experience. So one of the big things that we find is, when we talk about team selling, that we make the customer part of the team and bring them into the communication stream. And that just allows us to move with much more agileness and a lot more velocity in the way that we're able to address and solve our customers' problems.
Thank you. I think that context is super helpful. It sounds like channels are really serving as that central place for cross-departmental work to take place. And then, Kevin, it was great to hear how you're actually using channels with customers, using Slack Connect to essentially become an extension of your customers' teams. So thank you for that wonderful answer. So moving on, I want to get a little bit more specific with you. If you could walk us through an example or two of how Splunk uses Slack to close deals and nurture and grow those customer relationships, if you could expand a bit.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the things that we do a lot of is actually what we call proof of concepts, where we actually take the Splunk applications, specifically Splunk observability solutions, and actually deploy them so that a customer can see and feel and understand and experience how that works within their environment itself. And one of the great things that we've been able to do, again, going back to this idea of allowing customers to interact with us from a Splunk standpoint through the Slack product, is that we have actually set the customers into these channels, and it allows us to stay interlocked with one another to make sure that we're on track, to make sure we're able to triage customer issues when they come up in this POC. And what we found is that this actually accelerates our time and shortens the duration of the POC itself, where customers can accelerate their time to value. And if you think about That is the key. It means that I can actually run more POCs with the same SE team, which is phenomenally important. The other part that also fits into this is really impact, because what we want to be able to do is make it extremely easy for our customers to interact with us. And we need to be able to do that 24/7. We do that when there is an issue that comes up. And if we tried to use email, or we tried to use, using the phone or standard communication methods, what we found was the fact that they either went ignored or just unanswered from that perspective, where Slack allows us to stay in sync and move at the pace that our customers want to work with us on. Quentin?
Well, I mean, first, I think most people ignore your emails, but that's a different reason. But when it comes to the communication streams, you're absolutely right. And it is this concept, I think, of how do you make sure you get the right information to the right person at the right time? And timing is very important, as we all know. And so I think a great example of this is the way we do our executive briefings, and what used to run in our executive briefing centers and now is all from our homes virtually. And so Slack has been, I think, incredible when it comes to all of the prep that goes into pre, during, and post engagements for executive briefings with, obviously critical leaders from our company and many, obviously from our customers. And so, critical, simple things that you take for granted when you're all together in an office are sometimes really hard to accomplish if you don't have something like Slack when it comes down to, those critical moments that matter the most. And so for our EBCs, we use Slack exclusively on private channels to make sure people know sequence of timing and what's coming up, that we key in on cues that happen from earlier meetings that we may not have been a part of and we need to reinforce and obviously, maybe double click on during a meeting. And ultimately, I think the same thing Kevin described, the ability for us to respond to things faster, the ability for us to get the right person into the right situation so that we can shrink ultimately our time to do discovery, our time to qualification, and our time to get into negotiations and success, right? And so again, that concept of how we have the natural integration of what we do on Zoom and Slack, there are two words that are used as nouns, adjectives, verbs, and they become part of our daily routine. And I don't think we'd be successful without it.
Wow, lots to unpack there. I think the way you guys are using channels for proofs of concept and executive briefings are pretty phenomenal. I know, some of our customers are starting to do that and seeing it successful, but other sales teams, maybe didn't know that this was an option. So thank you for sharing your experience using channels and Slack Connect to actually conduct that with, have that closer connection to customers through both of those processes. So moving on, you guys talked a lot about speed on that last question. I can tell that speed is extremely critical. If you think about, if we can help each individual rep work more efficiently and close their deals faster, and then you amplify that across an entire sales team, thousands of reps potentially, there's so much revenue potential there. So I'm wondering, what advice can you offer to sales teams that are maybe struggling with lengthy deal cycles and looking to speed those up?
Yeah. So again, it's a different world, but it's also an exciting time to be in software. It's an exciting time to be in collaboration. And I think it's really an exciting time to be helping companies transform what digital means to them. And so, for me, speed and precision, they have to go hand in hand. If we're just operating really fast all the time, sometimes we can make some pretty bad mistakes. So, being accurate, being precise about how we spend our time, and same things you talked about today, concepts of team selling, it takes a village. It always has. So, things I focus on with my team and I try to get better at every day is really, focusing on the controllables, focusing on the process of the engagement with your customers to really understand what are their critical business priorities, what business projects are being funded that you might be able to add value to, and what do they think about as their big rock problems? Now, think about the world through their lens and how they're obviously going through transformation across all kinds of means. And again, focus on what we can control and what we can fit into. The other thing I think is, I talked about this with my team all the time. We're in the business of risk mitigation when we choose to sign up for sales and sales engineering. We choose to live our life 90 days at a clip. And we choose to really work through, obviously competitive situations. And the best advice I always try to live myself and obviously adhere to with my team is really understanding the risk in deals, not understanding why we're going to win. That's great. Or why they have to do something that's important. Why are they not going to? What reasons do we know about why things are not going to happen the way we think or in the timeline we expect and forecast? And then that bleeds into my kind of third one around consistent communication. Kevin knows how I feel about this around how I want all of my cross-functional leaders to share what they're doing every week, what they're collaborating on, where they're spending time. And I don't want them to just talk about it in meetings. I want them to share that and post that in Slack channels. I want them to spend time in workshops understanding, a day in the life of our peers and a day in the life of our customers. And again, where we add value. So, again, just summarizing that, keep doing what you're doing. You work in an incredible company with some of the best leaders I've ever seen. Your technology is game-changing, right? We're obviously running our business because of many of the things you and other people do, but focus on what you can control. Focus on the why now and why not aspects of your deal. And then obviously consistent communication with each other, with your managers, with your peers, and keep trying to learn every day at what you're doing. And obviously, as we emerge through this new norm, the value you're going to provide people, I think you're just getting started. So thanks for everything you do for us.
Yeah, and it's interesting talking about learning every day, Quentin. It's something on the SC front. We have to learn every day because we are the tip of the spear, especially as it comes down to looking at and thinking about the technology elements that our customers are experiencing. And from an SC perspective, we measure not just on getting deals closed and dollars of revenue, but for us, success from a sales engineering perspective really means being a trusted advisor. So as we think about getting acceleration in the deal cycle, the thing that we can do from a sales engineering perspective is get that trusted advisor status faster. And if we can do that, the deal is going to accelerate quicker. We're going to get a technical win and finally get a closed deal. So some of the things that we can do actually using Slack to become that trusted advisor status faster, really focus on some of the things we were talking about in terms of getting better connected with our customer. So we talked a lot about using Slack Connect in a group setting where we can troubleshoot and triage problems. The other thing it allows us to actually do is develop one-on-one relationships with our customers that you normally wouldn't get through the formality of email exchange. It allows us on a Friday afternoon to say, hey, what are you doing this weekend? What kind of beers are you drinking? Are you going out to play golf? And what this allows us to do is actually get to the human side of selling. And by using that one-on-one correspondence, what we're able to do is not just answer questions in a reactive nature, but actually develop a relationship with our customers that allows us to have the trust as well as the knowledge and be able to solve their issues that allow us to accelerate that deal through the cycle.
Well, some things never change, right? It sounds like, relationships still are what gets deals done, from what both of you just described. But I love how you're using Slack Connect and channels to kind of bridge that gap, since physical meetings aren't an option right now. Which brings us to our next question. We actually just did a survey about remote work and asked 9,000 people to tell us what they're wrestling with right now. And what rose to the top in those results is this fear about team morale, feeling like you're part of a team. So I'm curious, given the fact that most sales teams are working remotely, or their day-to-day looks a bit different today, do you share this concern around team morale? And if so, how have you guys tackled it, especially since we're working remotely today?
Well, the interesting thing as we look at it is that Splunk, we are known for the culture. And culture is something that's really important to me personally and to my sales engineering organizations itself. And the one thing that we have tried to do is how do you take this brilliant and dynamic culture we have here at Splunk, and instead of having it focused on the offices where you have hundreds and thousands of people working at a given time, and really personalize it and bring it home to the employees. And one of the things we did within my SC organization, we came up with this idea of something we call Donut Day. And essentially, my SC leaders and myself took about an hour, went through and created 2 to 3 minute video vignettes for every one of our SCs and made them personal. And from that standpoint, we delivered donuts via your favorite delivery company, delivered the donuts with a private URL that went out to a YouTube channel, and the employee could open that up and watch and listen to the vignettes and eat some donuts. It's one of those things that's just a really simple way to hold on to the culture and what makes Splunk amazing, not just to be an employee, but to be a sales engineer and be able to bring that into their homes. And it lifted the whole organization through something as silly as some video and some donuts. And it's something that, we're always looking at ways that we can drive that culture element. The other thing where we talk about something more tactical and more productive from a business perspective is actually using Slack. And that's something that's woven in our DNA in the way that we actually operate within our SE organization. One of my favorite Slack channels I'm actually subscribed to, and I've got hundreds of these. Thank you to the Slack engineers who created groups, by the way, with the last release. Phenomenal idea to be able to categorize those together. But as we look at this, one of my favorite channels is something that we call SE Private. This is something that we only have my direct SEs in the observability organization together in a channel. And the idea here is actually to foster and drive innovation and collaboration. So sometimes the discussion's just very rudimentary. It's like, I have a problem with this. How do I fix it? A lot of folks are dealing with children back to school recently. And one of my favorite exchanges that recently just came up was the fact that we had a number of SEs actually posting images of their children going back to school and some of the setups that they had to do. And ironically enough, it's not just us in this professional setting that live and rely upon Slack, but also our children are actually using it to interface with their classmates and their teachers and be able to see all that come together in that SC private channel. Again, it's an extension of the culture, but it's also an extension of the way that we can collaborate. And even though we could be hundreds or thousands of miles apart from one another, be able to stay in lockstep and be able to work and win as a team together.
It's really great hearing how you're leveraging private channels for the SE team, Kevin, to keep the team aligned and also introducing a little bit of levity into their day with the donut idea. Our marketing team got some cozy snuggies at the beginning of Shelter in Place, but I would have maybe preferred a donut. But Quentin, I would love to hear from you on this one too. What are your thoughts on keeping morale high and keeping the team connected?
Yeah, so I think people always come first to me, and the concepts of how we build community, how we invest in teams, and how we put people in the center of everything we do. It's paramount as leaders, but now more than ever, as we come from you in the confines of our home versus on stage together, right, in offices and business alike. So for me, I think it's how do you keep those connections? How do you keep sharing and collaborating across teams, not just across successes or across, big customer stories and engagements, but the little things, the work, the day in the life of what we're doing to hone our craft, to work on campaigns, to work on ways to help accelerate pipeline and use case positioning. I think it comes down to how do we share, how do we collaborate, and how do we continue to promote great work? And keep people, I think, aligned and inspired that, the world's a little different, but man, it's never been a better time to work in software and tech, to work in unified communications and collaboration and big data strategies. We're going to change the world with what things like Slack and Splunk and many other companies provide. We're going to change the world in the way that we help brilliant, passionate people ideate, share, and collaborate, learn from failures and mistakes and successes alike. So for me, keep your team engaged, use Slack, collaborate with each other and share the things that are going on every day. Live in the details and share what's going on in those details. And as I just said, we'll change the world together.
All right, I think that's about all the time we have. But before we do wrap up, I wanted to hit on some key takeaways from our conversation with Kevin and Quentin. The first is that we all are feeling it There's increased complexity and heightened customer expectations today that really require sales reps to team up with other departments throughout the deal lifecycle. And Slack is super helpful in unlocking that ability to bring cross-functional teams together, stay on lockstep, and ultimately be more effective. And I hope that you can apply some of the lessons we've learned from Splunk today to your world as you look to speed up your deal cycles and grow existing customer relationships. So I think that's all the time we have, but I want to sincerely thank Kevin and Quentin for sharing their experiences, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in with us as well. I hope that you can apply some of this to your world, like I said, and you can actually download a success kit in our resources library, which includes more about Kevin and Quentin's story. But Kevin, where can everybody learn more about Splunk?
Well, obviously, you can always visit Splunk.com. But to learn how Splunk is helping companies thrive in the data age, I strongly suggest checking out Splunk's annual user conference, .conf. That's actually happening October 20th and 21st virtually. So it's right around the corner. The awesome thing is it's free to attend this year, so you can actually go to conf.splunk.com to register. We have over 200 educational sessions with tons of great speakers and surprise guests. And you never know, you might see our faces again.
Very cool. I will be tuning in. And with that, I think we're going to hop on over to live Q&A. So don't be shy if you haven't already submitted a question. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you in just a moment.